It started with a birthday card, not a normal happy birthday son card, but a detailed invoice for 25 years of maternal services rendered, culminating in a demand for our house as payment. My mother-in-law, Helen Peterson, had actually itemized the cost of raising my husband Tom. Baby formula, $2,450. Private school tuition, $156,000. Emotional labor, priceless, Tom read aloud, his face darkening with each line. Therefore, your 4-bedroom house is suitable compensation for my lifetime of sacrifice. I thought it was a joke at first, but then Helen showed up at our door the next day with a real estate attorney and a stack of documents. I filed a lion against your property, she announced, strutting into our living room in her designer outfit. Consider it back payment for services rendered. Services rendered? Tom's voice was dangerously quiet. You mean being my mother? Being an excellent mother, Helen corrected, settling herself on our couch like she already owned it. I gave up everything for you after your father died. My career, my social life, my dreams. Now it's time for repayment. The attorney, a sleek man named Mr. Collins, spread documents across our coffee table. Mrs. Peterson's claim is quite innovative. We're arguing that maternal care constitutes an implied contract for future compensation. I'm a nurse, and something about Helen's mention of Tom's father set off red flags. James Peterson had died of cancer when Tom was 15, but Helen rarely spoke about it. When she did, the details always seemed shifty. Mom, Tom said carefully, Dad left us well provided for. His life insurance, his pension. Barely covered the basics. Helen snapped, but there was something nervous in her eyes. Besides, this isn't about your father. This is about my sacrifices. That weekend, I did something I should have done years ago. I pulled James Peterson's medical records from a hospital where I work. What I found made me physically sick. Tom, I said that night, there's something you need to see. The records told a story very different from Helen's version. James Peterson hadn't just died of cancer. He'd been denied potentially life-saving treatments because his wife claimed they couldn't afford them. Patient's wife declined experimental therapy, citing financial constraints. One note read, Mrs. Peterson refuses bone marrow transplant option, stating insurance and savings are exhausted. But attached were insurance documents showing full coverage for both treatments, and bank statements showing the Peterson family had more than enough saved to cover any extras. That's impossible, Tom whispered, reading the records. Mom said we were broke. Said we had to sell the house, cash in everything just to cover Dad's basic care. I pulled out more documents. The money was there, Tom. Your dad's account had over $400,000. But look at these withdrawals, all made by Helen in the months before and after his death. The pattern was shocking. $50,000 withdrawn the day after James declined experimental treatment. $100,000 transferred out when he was denied bone marrow transplant. $250,000 moved to a private account days before his death. She let him die, Tom said, his voice breaking. She had the money to save him, and she let him die. But there was more. I found a letter James had written to his doctor, never sent. Dr. Roberts, I know Helen is telling you we can't afford more treatment. Something's wrong. She won't show me our accounts, won't let me talk to the insurance company. When I ask about our savings, she gets angry, says I don't trust her. I'm too weak to fight now, but please keep this record. If anything happens. The letter ended there, as if he'd lost the strength to continue. That's when Tom started his own investigation. He hired a forensic accountant to trace the missing money. The results were devastating. $400,000 from James' accounts. $250,000 from his life insurance. $180,000 from his pension fund. All gone within a year of his death. Your mother invested in luxury real estate, the accountant explained. Condos in Florida, a villa in Spain, all purchased with your father's money while he was being denied life-saving treatment. Helen's demand for our house wasn't just about greed. It was about covering her tracks. She needed to maintain her story of sacrificing everything for Tom, if anyone looked too closely at her actual finances. We confronted her at her weekly tennis club lunch, where she was bragging to friends about her upcoming property acquisition. Mom, Tom said, dropping the medical files on her table, let's talk about Dad's cancer treatment, the ones you said we couldn't afford. Helen's perfectly made-up face went pale. That's ancient history. This is about my sacrifices. Sacrifices? Tom opened the files. Like sacrificing Dad's life so you could buy beach condos? The treatments you said we couldn't afford, while you were transferring his savings to your private accounts. Her tennis friends grew very quiet, watching the scene unfold. You don't understand, Helen started, but Tom wasn't finished. I understand perfectly. Dad could have lived. The insurance would have covered it. The savings were there. But you wanted that money for yourself. I made investment decisions, Helen began. You made murder decisions, Tom cut her off. You killed him by denying him treatment, then stole his money while his body was still warm. Helen stood up, switching to her society lady persona. I don't have to listen to these ridiculous accusations. Actually, you do, I said, as two police detectives approached her table. The DI is very interested in insurance fraud and medical negligence causing death. The next 72 hours exposed the full horror of Helen's calculated cruelty. The police investigation uncovered not just financial fraud, but a pattern of medical neglect that bordered on premeditated murder. Your mother didn't just deny your father treatment, Detective Martinez explained, spreading timeline evidence across our dining room table. She actively interfered with his care. We found nurses' notes about her intercepting pain medication, delaying critical treatments, even canceling doctor appointments without his knowledge. The evidence was methodical and chilling. March 15. Helen cancels bone marrow consultation. March 16. Transfers $100,000 to offshore account. March 20. Tells doctors family can't afford treatment. March 21. Places deposit on Florida condo. March 25. James reports increasing pain. March 26. Helen begins shopping for luxury cars. She was literally spending his treatment money while he suffered, Tom whispered, reading the timeline. Planning her new life while he died in pain. But it got worse. The forensic accountant found Helen's detailed notebooks, revealing her calculated approach to James's death. James too weak to check accounts now. Start moving larger sums. Research Florida property markets, need him to decline experimental treatment, too expensive, would cut into real estate funds. Pain making him suspicious, must control access to doctors. The hospital staff came forward with more memories. Sarah, a night nurse, recalled Helen's odd behavior. Mr. Peterson would beg for his pain medication, but Mrs. Peterson insisted on controlling the doses. She'd tell us he was exaggerating his pain, that we shouldn't enable him. Now I understand. She wanted him confused and weak so he couldn't question her about money. Dr. Roberts, James's oncologist, provided the most damning evidence. James tried to tell me something was wrong. He'd ask about treatments Helen claimed were denied by insurance. But when I checked, the coverage was there. She'd intercept calls from our office, cancel appointments, then tell him they were unavailable. Helen's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal. My client was under tremendous stress, making difficult financial decisions. Difficult financial decisions? Helen exploded. She watched my father die in agony while shopping for beach houses with his treatment money. The prosecutor was building an airtight case. Beyond the financial fraud, they were considering charges of medical neglect and elder abuse. Helen's careful notes provided evidence of premeditation. Must ensure James doesn't speak privately with doctors. Story must remain consistent. No money for experimental treatments. After he's gone, wait 6 months before first major purchase. Maintain grieving widow appearance. Helen's response to the evidence was pure narcissism. From her jail cell, she called family members, claiming she was the victim. I was protecting our assets, she insisted. James would have wasted everything on treatments that might not have worked. I made smart investment decisions. But her own words condemned her. Police found recordings on her phone, conversations with her real estate agent while standing in James's hospital room. Yes, I can view the condo next week. No concerns about funds. My current situation will be resolved soon. The money will be fully available in a matter of months. She'd been planning her luxury life while watching her husband die. The hospital's ethics board launched their own investigation, horrified they'd missed the signs. They implemented new protocols for suspected medical neglect and financial abuse. Your father's case will save others, Dr. Roberts told Tom. We're now required to speak privately with patients about treatment decisions, regardless of what family members say about finances. Tom found more evidence in their old house. Letters his father had tried to mail, seeking help. Something's wrong with Helen. Money's missing. She won't let me see doctors I need. If you get this. The letters were never sent. Helen had intercepted them all. Then came the evidence that broke Tom completely. A video recording found on James's old phone, made during one of his last lucid days. Tom, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I think your mother is letting me die. The pain is, I hear her on the phone, planning trips, talking about investments. There should be money for treatment, but she says we're broke. I'm too weak to fight now. Please forgive me for not being stronger. I love you, son. Remember me as I was, not what she's reducing me to. The video ended with James gasping in pain, Helen's voice in the background demanding he take a sleeping pill. Tom watched it alone in our bedroom, then didn't speak for 2 days. Meanwhile, Helen's carefully constructed social image crumbled. Her country club friends, initially supportive, turned away as evidence of her cruelty emerged. The luxury real estate agent who'd helped her buy properties with James's money provided copies of all their communications. She was shopping for beach houses while her husband was dying. The agent testified. Talked about how she'd finally be free to enjoy life once her current obligations were handled. I thought she meant work obligations. God help me, I helped her spend that poor man's treatment money. Helen's arrest made local headlines. Wealthy widow accused of letting husband die for luxury lifestyle. Woman denied husband cancer treatment while buying beach houses. Grieving son discovers mother's fatal fraud. But it was Helen's own words in her journal that proved most damning. James becoming difficult about money. Keeps asking about treatments. Easier once pain medications increase. He'll be too confused to question anything. Need him to sign power of attorney before he becomes suspicious. Florida property prices rising. Must move quickly. Helen's sentencing hearing was held on what would have been James's 60th birthday. She appeared in court wearing widow's black, still trying to maintain her grieving wife facade. The performance fell flat as the prosecutor presented the evidence of her calculated cruelty. Your Honor, the prosecutor began, we have a video to show the court. It's James Peterson recording his own slow death while his wife shopped for luxury properties with his treatment money. The courtroom watched in horror as James's gaunt face filled the screen. The pain is unbearable. Helen says we can't afford more medication. But I heard her on the phone about a beach house. Helen tried to interrupt. I was investing for our future. There was no our future. Tom stood up, his voice shaking. You planned his death like a business transaction. Timed your property purchases around his decline. Watched him die in agony while planning your luxury retirement. The judge's face was stone as she reviewed Helen's journal entries. James too confused from pain to check accounts now. But timing, Spanish villa prices dropping. Canceled pain management appointment. Need funds for Florida property closing costs. He's asking too many questions. Increased his sleeping pills. Better this way. Mrs. Peterson, the judge spoke slowly. This court has seen many cases of financial fraud. But watching your husband suffer while spending his treatment money on beach houses, that's a level of cruelty that demands maximum punishment. The sentence was severe, 20 years for criminal medical neglect causing death, with additional time for fraud and elder abuse. No possibility of parole for 15 years. But I'm his mother. Helen screamed as they led her away. Tom, you can't let them do this to your mother. Tom stood, holding his father's last photo. My mother died the day she chose beach houses over my father's life. You're just the monster wearing her face. The aftermath brought unexpected healing. The forensic accountant traced Helen's property purchases, finding over $2 million in assets bought with James's money. Everything was seized and sold, with the proceeds going to the hospital's cancer treatment fund. Your father's money will now save lives, Dr. Roberts told Tom. We've established the James Peterson Memorial Fund for patients whose families can't afford experimental treatments. Tom found peace in knowing his father's death would prevent others from suffering the same fate. The hospital implemented the Peterson Protocol, mandatory private consultations with patients about treatment options, regardless of family claims about finances. Helen's luxury properties were sold off one by one. Florida beachfront condo, $800,000. Spanish villa, $950,000. Luxury car collection, $400,000. all bought with money that could have saved James's life. From prison, Helen still tried to manipulate. Her letters alternated between threats and guilt trips. "You've destroyed your mother's life. I only wanted what was best for us. You'll regret this when I'm gone too." But her power was gone. Her carefully crafted social image shattered, her luxury lifestyle forfeit, her freedom lost. The grieving widow was exposed as a calculating killer. 1 year after Helen's sentencing, we held a memorial service for James, the kind Helen had denied him, claiming they couldn't afford a proper funeral. His friends shared stories of his kindness, his integrity, his love for Tom. "Your dad knew something was wrong," his best friend confided. "He tried to tell me about the missing money, but Helen had isolated him so completely. She controlled everything: his doctors, his medications, his mail. By the time we realized what was happening, he was too weak to fight. We established a support group for families of medical neglect victims. Surprisingly, Helen's case wasn't unique. Other families came forward with similar stories of relatives denying medical care while stealing treatment funds. The James Peterson Foundation now helps track these cases, working with hospitals to identify signs of medical and financial abuse. Every year, they help dozens of patients access treatment their families tried to deny. Tom keeps his father's last photo in our living room, not the one from his sickbed, but from before, when he was strong and smiling. Beside it sits the journal we found hidden in James's old briefcase, documenting his growing suspicions about Helen. Something's wrong with the money. Helen says we're broke, but I hear her on the phone about property investments. Too weak to fight now. Tom, if you ever read this, know I tried to stay for you. I'm sorry I couldn't be stronger. Helen will be eligible for parole in 15 years. Sometimes I wonder if she spends her days in prison counting her lost millions, or does she ever truly regrets choosing luxury over her husband's life? But then I look at the lives being saved by the James Peterson Foundation, at the families being protected by the protocols his death inspired, and I realize it doesn't matter. Last week, another cancer patient received life-saving treatment through the foundation. When Tom heard the news, he touched his father's photo and smiled through tears. "See that, Dad?" he whispered. "Your death wasn't meaningless. Every life we save is a defeat of her greed. Every person we help is proof that love wins over money." The beach houses Helen bought with James's treatment money are gone now, sold to fund cancer research. It's not the legacy she planned, but it's the justice James deserved.